Hello, everybody. It's Marcy from wavesofcommunication.com with a live video today doing some live Q&A. So I know that it's going to take a little bit of time for some people to join me. So hi, Vinu. Thank you for joining me. And as people are coming to join on, I do have a couple questions that I've gotten on other videos that I want to share on. So I am here. If you have a question for me live, this is your opportunity to post that question in the comments now. And if you're joining on the replay, if you're not able to catch me live, this is also, excuse me, a good video for you to post your question on. Perhaps I'll answer it among the other questions that I get from other parents, or, you might have something different. Remember, all the videos that I do on my Waves of Communication YouTube channel are general strategies. That means that everybody has to take these general ideas that I have and use them specifically in your life. Everyone's home situation is a little bit different. You might have one child, you might have many children, you might live as a single parent, or there might be many adults in your household. In fact, more adults than children happen sometimes. You might speak more than one language in your home. You might have working or not working. All of these different kinds of situations are the ways that I help parents adapt the strategies that they learn from other videos to their particular kids. So that's just an environmental kind of thing that I'm talking about. There also could be very specific things about your child's specific situation that might require coaching too. So I see that there are some questions coming in. Let me talk about them first. So I see Vinu, who says, it has been almost a week with me facilitating language, a week of waves. Okay, and I notice my child is not always looking at me when I reach and teach. How can I know that he is listening? It's a very basic question, but I'd be grateful for your answer. So that is a very good question. In fact, it's a perfect question for just about every parent who has just started language facilitation. Remember, the reason that your child is late talking, Vinu, and all of you other moms and dads and grandmas and everybody else who's watching today, the reason that your child's late talking is due to one or more blockages. It could be a physical blockage, like they had ear issues, maybe, they didn't hear much. That's an environmental, but there could be physical, there could be environmental, and there could be emotional blockages. And one of the things, the first thing that we can do to sort of show that blockages have been eliminated, right? So parents are digging in and they're like, yep, I've been prompting my kids. So now I'm trying things to make those changes, like you're stopped prompting maybe. And, or I'm not sure what you have done, Vinu, to change. And that's kind of what I sort of want to know too. Like you said, there's no physical blockage, and he'll be 3 in about 2 weeks, you said. However, you say there is no blockage or no autism, which, again, is not the situation. But here's the history, like she's saying, a history of understimulation and screen time, a lot of screen time. Okay, so now we have the information we need to help understand why a child could be still looking like they're not listening, and how to know if your child is listening. Now, remember, if your child had a lot of screen time, maybe he was learning a lot from screens, and that's where he learned most of his vocabulary and things like that, and you have stopped that, or you've done some difference because you say you're doing language facilitation and maybe he didn't have much human talking. And that's what you said. You noticed the understimulation. So I'm hoping that you're following the strategies of talking about the things that you're doing. However, you're not really sure if your child is listening to you, because if your child had a lot of screen time and limited human language exposure, your child is out of the habit of listening. So just because you decided to get in the habit of starting to talk to your child more, and you've been doing it for a week, doesn't mean that your child has decided in the same time frame, oh, Now I'm going to start listening. Because remember that your child was in the habit of preferring the screen time over you. So what you probably are doing is trying to replace some of that time with the screen time. Now, the question you had was, how do you know if your child is listening? And there are a few little key signs that you can tell. Number one, you have to think about your child's behavior differences, because if he's not sitting there and looking at you and, watching you like that, where it's obvious that he's sitting there listening to you, you have to look for other signs, because remember, your child is a nonverbal communicator primarily. So are they, if they were used to, whenever you talk to them, running away, are they staying near you longer? Is he hanging out much more? That's the first one. Number two, is your child coming to hang out in the vicinity of you while you're doing things? For example, if you're talking about your things that you're doing, like, you're cooking and you're talking about the things that you're cooking, or you're cleaning and you're talking about the things that you're cleaning and how you're cleaning, or you're demonstrating how you do the laundry, or excuse me, or you're talking to your child while you're getting him dressed. All of these normal times that you do things all day. If you are talking in a real positive language facilitation way, using your language facilitation talk, where you're actually being attractive to your child, you're going to notice them coming into and wanting to stay in your space more on their own, not with you saying, come sit here and learn. In fact, this is your child's first unprompted communication to show that you're doing language facilitation in the right words, the right way, at the right time. That's what language facilitation talk is. This is what every language facilitator parent should be doing. And she's talking about the reach and teach strategy in this comment, because what she's doing is she's watching her child and she's talking about what her child is doing and investigating and looking and seeing and that kind of thing. So this is the perfect time for you to double down on your language facilitation talk and watch your child's reaction. If he was running away, is he staying closer? Also, you don't have to get perfect eye contact where your child's looking at you like this. That's not how we determine if a child is listening, because you listen, we all listen. You might even be listening to this video, not looking at me, because all I'm doing is a talking head right here. There's not even anything to see. I don't even have any graphics up or pictures to see. You could be yourself washing dishes right now, or driving the car, or something like that, and still listening to this video. Remember, your late talking child has been listening to you even when you're not talking directly to them, okay? So you can assume that your child is listening if you start to see changes in their behavior. They come near you, they stay by you, they start to sort of respond more readily to the things that you ask them to do. They, even if you're prompting, because you're not supposed to, because we don't prompt in language facilitation, but if you find yourself prompting, or when you are needing to prompt your child to teach them a behavior you need, because that is a time that we do prompt our kids. We just don't prompt our kids to talk with language facilitation. It could be that you are still prompting and your child is resistant to those prompts. And if you're still doing a lot of prompting, but you're also doing a lot of descriptive talking, the prompting your child is getting from you or other people could be putting them off, because they see your nice language facilitation as just another reinforcement. I only get it sometimes when I perform. Otherwise, they ask me to do things and say things and do things and say things. And whenever your child finds themselves in that situation with a communication partner that's going to prompt them, they're going to slip into their prompt dependence and or avoidance mindset and just do what you say or avoid it, okay? Just because you're telling them to do what you say. Reach and teach is all about watching your child, seeing your child, watching what they are doing and following that. So hopefully you can understand now a little bit more about how to know if your child is listening. They will show you a change in their behavior, a positive change that you want to see. Being near you, coming near you, looking at you fleeting. It's just a little one, like, wow, what did you say? Because when you say the right thing something that really connects with what your child is thinking, they will look at you. Think about what happens when you're having a conversation with your partner and you say something like, "Ooh, that was a great movie." And they look at you because they say it was a great movie too. You make fleeting eye contact like, "Yes, I agree with you." When your child agrees with you, what you say, because you're saying what they're thinking, then they will stay by you and look at you and do all kinds of things that you like for them to do. Then that's how you know that they were listening. But they will test you to see if this isn't just one more little nice thing you're doing. They're going to see if you're committed to talking to them. So that's why it takes sometimes more than a week, depending on how much prompting you've been doing. So Vinu, after a week, you should see some changes, but you're not going to see, it depends on what happened before. You want to see a shift in your child because you've made a shift in your behavior and you want to show how that works, okay? So let's move on to the next question. Alina says, my son was born with a large head. He's 3 and still doesn't talk speech. How do I make him talk? All right, so Alina, that is a very general question, and kids have big heads for a lot of reasons. Also, his big head could have affected your birth, and that birth could have affected a lot of things. That's one of the physical things. Again, before you can make your child talk, first of all, language facilitation doesn't make anybody talk. It helps children share the spoken language that they know. So with language facilitation, the job of every language facilitation parent, and you too, Alana, is to put language in, provide language models that your child needs to share what they are thinking about. If you have been using words that you want your child to say, labeling things, lists of things, what is this, where is it, answering questions, following directions, do this, say this. If you find yourself asking more questions and giving more prompts than talking about what your child is thinking, ew, I don't like that broccoli, or I want to watch another video, or let's do that again, I want to jump on the couch, I don't care what you say, if the couch is clean or not, I want to jump on it, right? If your child is thinking that, and they're late talking and they're jumping on the couch, they're testing you to try to see if you know what they're thinking, if you care what they're thinking. And when you show them, you know and care what they are thinking by giving them the words they need to say what they are thinking out loud, guess what? They will learn how to use those words from you. And that's what's so important about all of this. So that's how you do it. Hi, Cynthia. Thank you for joining me. So Alina says he does have fluid in his ears and he doesn't pay attention when I'm teaching. He screams. So you're going to have to, that's definitely a physical thing, Alina. You'll have to work with someone about that ear fluid. But even until, and it's all gone, because sometimes that's a process to get ear fluid gone, you have to assume that your child cannot hear as well as other kids who don't have fluid in their ears. So you have to talk in a way that's very careful. You have to encourage your child's visual attention to your face and your mouth by looking in mirrors and holding objects by your face so that they get used to using the other clues. You have to speak more slowly and more loudly and more carefully in simple, short phrases that your child can understand. That is how you can facilitate a child to listen to you well enough to learn the speech they need. So, hey, I see more people joining me. Thank you for joining me. Please like this video right now. And if I shared some tidbit to help you out today, consider sharing this video on your social media platform, because a lot of other parents probably have this answer to the same question that you have. I've got another one. All right, Cynthia, let's move on. My son is 5. He reads very well and repeats most of the things you say to him, but he cannot make a full sentence when talking to us. What can I do in this situation? So thanks, Cynthia. Thank you for your question. And the situation that happens when we know what kids know, right? That means that you have done a lot of what I call teach, test, reward. And that's how most therapies work. And a lot of parents, especially parents who homeschool, will find themselves doing this teach, test, reward method for spoken language, just like they do for teaching new concepts like colors and numbers and shapes and things like that. And the thing is, teaching your child to memorize vocabulary, to label things like colors and shapes and all that stuff, it also is how kids move easily into reading. So you said he's 5 and he reads very well and he repeats most of the things you say to him, which means that he probably learned to read by some sort of imitation, teach, test, reward. And he knows that he gets a good job. You did it. That's right. And that whatever, like how you test his reading, how you know he reads very well, we don't know if he reads the words out loud or if he comprehends those words out loud. We don't know all that yet. So the problem is we have to understand, how did he learn to read? And that method that he learned to read probably was a memorization thing, because what he was rewarded, the thing he got the good job was for when he produced, when he passed the test, when you tested him. What's this word? Read this thing. What does this say? Match the word to the picture, and all the other things that you did to teach him to read. Unfortunately, memorization does not teach kids to use the spoken language they have memorized. It does teach them how to pass the tests, which is why you know your child can say single words and can use them to read. But he probably isn't understanding or even focusing on the language that you use to tell stories. So if your child is a great reader and knows a lot of vocabulary, the level of language facilitation you need to be is way, way, way ahead of single words. In fact, there is no level of language facilitation that focuses on single words, because by themselves, single words don't help us a lot. Even yes and no as a single word only give us a one-word response. And yes is a very limited, or no is a very limited response. Most kids are thinking yes, but, or yes, and. And they're thinking no, but, or no, and. So at every single level, even if your child is nonverbal and 18 months old, you should be providing language models to them in sentence form. 100% grammatically correct sentences with age-appropriate vocabulary. Because even though your child is not using, your super smart child who's already reading is not using spoken language, your child understands all of it and is thinking in pictures, all of it. They just don't have the tools because nobody has demonstrated to them how to use these things functionally. It's just been teaching, testing. Oh, you said it, reward. And the child likes the reward. So in these cases, kids will isolate themselves, or they will use behaviors to communicate things like feelings or opinions or disagreements or their problems, which all that stuff is their problems, because they don't have a way to talk about their problems. They hear you talk about your problems. You're not doing this. You're not sitting still. You're not in school. You're not saying words. You're not using complete sentences. Now I have to pull complete sentences out. You're not sitting still. Now I have to make you sit still. Just like the first mom says, how do I make them talk? You don't make them do anything. You show them how talking works. For you, for other people, because that's how they learn it. They watch another kiddo say, have a tantrum, and it works for them to get everybody to stop working with that kid. And your child starts giving tantrums because they're in school. They're learning from their peers. Okay? All of the things your child does, 100% of the things your child does, they have learned as a communication thing from watching you or someone else. So if your child yells at you, then you probably yell at your child. If your child tries to negotiate and withhold things and run away from you, guess what they have experienced? All child's communication behavior mirrors what they see and hear in their environment. And if your child can't hear because he has ear fluid, like you said, it's a good idea to go with the tubes. It's a good idea to go with a doctor who can holistically evaluate your child, because you don't know why. your child has ear fluids. That's like throwing medicine at a problem you don't understand, okay? There's lots of reasons that kids are late talking. There's lots of reasons that ear fluid happens. Anywhere from allergies to head size to environments. You know what I mean? You could have allergies and not live in a place where they're activated, move to a new place and suddenly have allergies. Okay. You could be around people in your environment. There's mold or toxins and suddenly realize you have allergies and that causes fluid. You could get a virus that you catch from somebody and it could cause ear fluid. The common cold, right? You could be at a new daycare, you know, and picking up daycare germs from other kids and get ear fluid. There's lots and lots of reasons to do that. And if those are situations, then you look at immune system. If it's structural because you had a C-section birth, then you might want to look at chiropractic. But you got to find a way to the source of that fluid. And an ear, nose, and throat doctor or a chiropractor or some other medical professional, even a homeopath, who's used to really evaluating the true root cause for that ear fluid. That is what's necessary, because your language facilitation is only going to work as well as your child can hear, right? Because they have to hear you. So that's what it goes. So he reads them out loud. He reads words out loud, Cynthia, probably to prompt you to give him more spoken language. All kids who provide limited spoken language, especially if there's been a lot of prompting in their world, Cynthia, that means that your child is trying to prompt you to give them more, right? Just like you are trying to prompt your child to give you more. Say it in a complete sentence. He says cookie, you say, I want cookie. He says, you know, holding his teddy bear, you say, that's your teddy bear, right? You know, if you're not providing those language models and your child's going teddy bear and they're holding it and you say, yeah, that's right, that's your teddy bear. Your child already knows that. If you want to stimulate conversation, think about how you are with your friends. You walk up to your friends and you say, it's pouring rain. It's been pouring rain. If you live in Australia, you know what I'm talking about. It's been pouring rain for weeks in Australia. Roads are flooded out. Kids can't go to school because of flooding this time of year in certain parts of Australia, right? And you go outside and you go, wow, it's really raining, isn't it? It's been raining for 2 weeks. You think somebody wants to have a conversation with you, your neighbor, about the rain? No. They want to talk about how are you coping with the rain? What happened with the rain in your life? How is it specific to you? Your late talker is no different, especially if they are older than 3 years old. They care about themselves. They care about what they feel. They care about what they think. And they want you to care about them and what they feel and what they think. And that's why they need to hear that from you. So, hey, Summer, nice to see you for joining me. Anybody else? Let's see. Alana says we're seeing an ENT for 6 months. She has an appointment tomorrow. Right. So again, even while you are working on the physical things that if your child has ear fluid, if they, if you're working with, it doesn't matter. They, you were premature, your child has seizures, they were late walking, you have gastrointestinal, your child's on a G-tube. There's lots and lots and lots of physiological things that will delay a child's speech because they're always going to be focused on healing their physical body before they can work on higher level mental things. We are animals before we are human beings, okay? And our fundamental instincts are to heal our physical problems and focus our physical body on that. That's why, I just got the coronavirus vaccine the other day, and I don't take pharmaceuticals at all usually. And I know that there's a lot of people following me who don't take vaccine. In fact, their kids have been vaccine injured, but there are a lot of reasons that it was important for me to get the vaccine. Okay. And I'm in a situation where if I get coronavirus, I could die from it. I have a history of severe asthma that's put me in the hospital. So I made a decision, because I live in a place where I want to be social and I want to get out with people, that I made a decision to take the vaccine, right? And it's affected my body. I'm healing from it. I'm getting all of it put together, right? And and it's not affected my brain. That's why I did Q&A today, so I can answer your questions instead of coming up with something brand new. You're helping trigger my mind, but yeah, it does affect you, and you can't be your best unless you have some physical healing, and that's what happens, okay? So again, whatever your child is giving to you, if it's a gesture, if it's they stay by you more, if they look at you a little bit more, if they start to hold your face and look at your mouth, if they start to bring you things more, if they start to point a little bit more carefully, those are nonverbal ways that are showing you that your child is elevating their listening, that you're on the right track with this. And that means that you need to dig in more with your language facilitation. Okay. And if your child is saying single words or whatever, they don't need you at that point to prompt them to say more. Believe me, if they were able to use these complete sentences, they would be using them. They're prompting you to teach them how to expand their language, okay, if they're only using single words. So whenever your child gives you anything, you always respond or recast that idea that you know they meant, because you're half reading their mind anyway. That's why most late talkers don't talk, is because they don't have to, because parents are reading their mind and talking for them and guessing. But that's what happens, you see, when parents are understanding what their kids want and saying it out loud while the child is thinking it. They learn those words and then they'll start using them. But they never will learn them, mommies, if you don't teach them. They will never learn the words they need unless you teach them. So don't worry about the words that everybody else is teaching, right? If your child's going to therapy, if they're going to school, if you have a spouse, if there's a grandma around, if they see anybody else, other people are going to pull language out. That's their job. They don't know your child like you do. Your job as the language facilitator, the main one who's responsible for helping your child use the speech that they know. If your child can read out loud all these words, if your child can follow all these directions, right? Even if they have ear fluid, even if they have been diagnosed with autism, even if they ignore you most of the time, you can reach and teach and get them going. You can learn how in my book, okay? I have other things. Let me show you, actually. I have a couple more resources I want to share you. Just really quick, just to share, there's all kinds of ways for you to learn language facilitation. I have a book. I have a Facebook group. I have a MeWe group. I have these weekly videos on YouTube, and I have a podcast. I like to do these live Q&As because I want to hear from you what's going on with your kiddo, and I see another one coming in. So here we've got a question from Coley Lynn, who says, my daughter is 2.5 years old, a lot and says words, and after using your tips, she is saying new words all the time, and she says things I don't understand yet. And you made a sad face. Don't worry. And she's saying, I'm getting worried. Wait a minute. That's not something to be worried about. That's something to be excited about, because your child is elevating the spoken language, right? They start with what they know now, and we don't know why, Coley Lynn, your 2.5-year-old was late talking, but guess what? You taught her at some point that single words and signs were behaviors she could use instead of talking to actually get what she wants, and not even bother having to listen to you or learn talking. And that's what's happened in your 2.5-year-old. So that's what caused her to be stuck, was she learned really quick, teach, test, reward. When you sign more, you say this, or you do cookie, or you do drink, or whatever you taught her, and she had all these signs, right? If you taught her all that stuff and it worked for her, she's done. I got it. I learned it. I learned what I need. Again, late talkers don't talk if they don't have to. They don't like it. They would be talking if it was easy, happy, safe, and fun for them. Because when you make it easy, happy, safe, and fun, they do, right? But if it's not easy, if it's not happy, if it's not safe, like they feel like they're going to be judged all the time. That's what I mean by not safe. Okay. Nobody feels safe when you constantly, every single thing you say out of your mouth is going to be judged by someone, corrected to expand, their articulation wrong. Like if you're scared to talk because you're going to be judged, you're not going to talk. Okay. Easy means, wow, words just fly out of my mouth because I feel like talking. There's nothing prohibiting me, right? And I already know these words, and that was really cool. Like, it worked for her to get something, so I'm going to say it, right? They have to be happy about it. They have to enjoy the process. They have to feel safe and not judged, and it has to be fun. And fun is not just super happy, goofy. Fun is solutions to solve my problems. Like, it's a lot more fun to ask mom for a cookie and get it than to have to throw myself on the floor and make a scene at the store to get that cookie. Because most moms would give a kid a cookie or negotiate around it, at least, if the child would use spoken language. But kids learn, well, the only way I'm going to get a cookie, or the only way I'm going to get someone to listen to how I feel, is I got to pull out that behavior. Remember that you're reinforcing that as a language facilitator parent. That's why that happens. Okay. So there's no reason to be worried, Coley. And this is why, remember, we talk about waves of communication always going up and down and up and down. If you decide you're going to do language facilitation and not prompt your kid to say words, guess what? They're going to say fewer words. And then when they do start talking, it's not going to be perfect and clear and exactly what you say. It's going to be their own. And they're not going to be good at it because it wasn't always easy, happy, safe, and fun. Just like you put the child on the bicycle the first time, they're not going to be perfect at riding it. They're going to fall off. They're going to wobble. They're going to do whatever. And what do? You hold on to make sure they don't fall off the bike. You got to do this with language too. You can't just assume your child can use spoken language just because they've memorized words. If you've ever taken a foreign language at public school, you know what I'm talking about. You can have 4 years of foreign language at a public school, memorizing what you need, teach, test, reward, passed my test, got an A in the class, still can't use the language without some spontaneous examples and demonstration. That's why when you get to the older levels of foreign language learning, they all involve this conversational. The teacher only speaks in that language. So you can hear all the things, not just the vocabulary, but how they are used in spoken languages. And that's how all this goes, right? All right, let's move on to some more questions because I've got a meeting at noon and I can't get into this, and I know that I can get long. So Coley Lynn, don't get worried. Keep doing your language facilitation, the right words, the right way, at the right time. And listen, if you don't know, like if you're watching YouTube videos and thinking that just watching one YouTube video and using slow talking for a week is enough to get your kid talking, you're mistaken. You're mistaken. There is an entire process to understanding and uncovering what is blocking your child's spoken language. We talked about it could be ear fluid, but it could be ear fluid and screen time and parents not talking to the child. Those are 3 things you got to fix before spontaneous language is going to come. Okay. It could be you've got siblings that are talking for a child and they never get a word in edgewise. That's something that's going to have to change. If you don't know how to change those things, then we're going to talk about resources to how to do, but I've got some more questions here. All right. So don't think about the vaccine without checking your vitals. I've got the whole thing. Don't worry. I am all good. I've even checked my astrology to make sure that my vaccine was taken on the perfect time. So I am not right. Nothing's bad going to happen to me. I'm such an angel. Thank you, Venu. I'm looking very positively at my vaccine situation. All right. Caitlin says, my son is 4. Lots of jargon, saying one word at a time. This is good evolution. Starting to put 2 words together, but been trying to prompt more. Is there other activities I can do to prompt him? Right. So you don't want to prompt him. The whole point is, Caitlin, you want to show him how to use the language he needs. And if he's starting spontaneously, anytime a child is at the level where they are spontaneously using single words and combining them. So they'll say cookie and to label it, and then they'll say mama cookie. It always means this much more than it actually is. So when they say cookie, it means I want a cookie, or I want another cookie, or why won't you give me another cookie, or you gave me a cookie yesterday and why can't you give me? And it could just say one word, cookie, right? And if you're in the middle of negotiation and they say cookie mommy, cookie mommy, cookie mommy, or mommy cookie, 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 over and over again, that means that your child is trying, is thinking a longer idea. and they're trying, they want to know what speech to use, but they don't know it. They don't know the language, and they want to be talking to you. So they're just doing the best they can to help you guess, because you've been guessing their entire life. So what you do is demonstrate what you're doing. And Caitlin, you want to use a lot of storytelling. What I recommend, and this is a strategy I've just been giving to the families in my program, every time your child says one thing to you, a word, a phrase, anything, your response should be 3 full sentences about that topic in the real world. Oh, you are talking about dinosaurs. You have, because your dinosaur toy is broken and you want me to fix your dinosaur toy, right? Because you looked at the situation and you talked through the entire situation in 3 full sentences. Because what most parents don't understand with your late talking kids is they understand this much more. But because you've only been teaching, testing, rewarding the things that you've been prompting, you don't know how much your child knows because you haven't been prompting all that other stuff. And Caitlin's trying to prompt all that other stuff, but no, that's not it. Your child learned from memorization what the words are. They're going to learn from language facilitation how to use them. And that's the language you're looking for, because your child already knows. I mean, that's why you're disappointed. That's why you're watching this video, is because you worked really hard to get this child to be able to label these objects or identify these words or read them or do whatever. You might have worked years over and over and over in repetitive activities to get those results that you see from those testing. That's why you're able to label them out for me. You've seen them on IEP goals. You're gauging them. You're collecting your data yourself, right? And that data is not helpful for spoken language learning. Spoken language learning is spontaneous, unprompted. That's why you can't measure it. Now, when we talk about evidence-based for this, you look at things like floor time or the Hannon program or other things where you look at the outcomes. And if you want to look at whatever, you just want to look at your own results. Is your child listening to you more? And that's all you need, because when your child listens to you more, they will learn to learn spoken language. You have to trust it. Okay. All right. Let's see. Kishore says, my late talker who's 15 years old. Remember, it's never too old to teach your late talker to talk. I have late talkers in my program who are teenagers, many of them, few of them. My late talker who's 15-year-old uses words only sometimes. Words come spontaneously. We hear the words popping. Otherwise, he makes the mouth action without the voice and sound when we ask him to say and repeat. So, Kishore, in your case, your older late talker has developed his own habits around how he uses spoken language. And whatever he's developed, remember, 15 years old, these are really set habits. The only reason a child will use regular level talking when they're comfortable and quiet other times is when they do not feel confident that either easy, happy, safe, or fun. They don't feel confident that they know the right words and they're going to be judged, because kids don't want to be judged. They know their talking isn't as good as other kids. They're late talkers, especially if he's 15. He understands a lot more than people can, pick out. You understand him more. If he's not using, if he's only using words sometimes, somehow he got to be 15 years old living in your house, right? You have to go back to the beginning and reach and teach exactly what your child is thinking about. And this is where at 15 years old, you may need some big new habits for yourself, because just like your child has 15 years of habits of non-verbally communicating to you, you have 15 years of accepting that as acceptable language in your household and responding to it and solving your child's problems without talking about them in the real world. And at 15, anytime a child gets older than 8 or 9 years old, then instead of always telling stories about what you think they like and, the things you want to teach them, you really need to start digging into their problems and what causes them worry and anxiety and fear, because they're thinking about those things. They have those things coming into their life all the time. And most of the time people ignore those things. But just like you, if you're, got a 15-year-old whose child's late talking, you may have given up on speech by this time, or other people had given up on speech for your kiddo, saying never, no way, after 6 or 8 years old, they'll never learn to talk, and they try to give you devices or sign language or picture systems or whatever to use with your child. But if your child can use their own spoken language, that just means that they have not been trained or taught in how to use it. They just know words, and they are more effective at communicating with their behavior. And that's just why they use it. They are in the habit. And once your child is past that 6, 7, 8 years old, unless you involve your child in the language learning process, it's never going to happen. Because same with articulation at any age. If your child is saying the R sound wrong, or the L sound wrong, or the S sound, or they're leaving off the beginnings or ends of words, you're never going to repeat practice that skill into your child. Your child must decide and recognize, oh, there are ends to words, and I need to try hard to put both syllables into the word. That is the only way it will integrate into your child's spoken language. Where speech therapy would think, the more speech therapy you do, we'll just do 5 sessions a week for 2 hours a day, and your child will get the new habit. Your child will not get any new habit unless they decide, just like you. If I said, now suddenly you have to start every single morning getting up and screaming, yay, we love language facilitation every single day. And if you did that, then your progress would move. You wouldn't do it because it doesn't make sense. Okay? You have to use strategies that make sense to you with all of this whole process. That's why I'm a coach, okay? Let me show you one more. Hey, Laura, nice to see you. Laura says, update for you. My daughter has started to sing nursery rhymes. Her speech has come a long way and says new words daily. That's amazing. And she is a 4-year-old. Let me show you really quick another question. I made a couple graphics because I want to show you really quick. This is a real common question. It's a misdiagnosis question. It's about misdiagnosis. And I get these kind of comments just about every day on the platform. And this is about somebody who says, I was pressured. Now, if you read my book, you see that I talk about how misdiagnosis happens. And here's a mom who says, I was pressured by teachers from my son's nursery for evaluation, so I did. And surely enough, he was diagnosed with a few months before turning 5. His red flags are mostly gone. Okay, right? Still, he's 5. His red flags are mostly gone. His speech and language has blossomed since using your strategies, but they had to diagnose him with ASD because of the history of red flags stated from his teacher's reports, right? Because he came up for this probably pre-kindy or whatever nursery situation screening, and they gave him this diagnosis. So basically, she feels her child is doomed to have this diagnosis attached to him for life. And so, yeah, that's what a lot of parents feel. And I got another question to follow up that says, overcoming diagnosis. So here's Carla is in Mexico, and she says, I'm curious to know how you started knowing that pseudo experts are just putting on kids the autistic titles. So the thing is, with this, they aren't pseudo experts. They are experts. They know and have studied all about autism, and they do want to label kids with these things mostly because of services. Obviously, with your experience, you notice that they are doing misdiagnosis all the time. And here's the big question. How do kids that were given this diagnosis leave this diagnosis behind? God bless you for making these videos. Really, thank you from the bottom of my heart. So let's just talk just real quick about misdiagnosis and the label of autism and keeping it or losing it or schools or, all of that stuff. And I'm just going to say that it happens. Okay. It's going to happen to you. The way the system works is a lot of places cannot get the, sorry, I see your question raising autism, and I will get to it in just a second. So the system doesn't often pay for the therapist to get reimbursed from insurance or county or city or country programs, national programs. unless there is some massive diagnosis. They have to show a real significant delay, where before there was autism diagnosis, kids would only get services if they showed delay. 25% delay or 30% delay on a program would qualify the trigger to pay for a therapist, a speech pathologist or somebody to go to work with the child. In 0 to 3 anyway. And that's how most categories, when therapists and evaluators use standardized diagnostic tools to evaluate kids in standard scores, age equivalence, standard score, standard deviations from the norm, where they use and compare those things, right? All of those tests have very specific criteria, and they can use those numbers as evidence that your child has an impairment. It's not just some therapist deciding, oh, your child's late talking and you deserve therapy. There has to be some mechanism that is evidence to trigger the money, and that's all it is. And so what happened was the parents of kids, an advocate for this autism diagnosis, showed that autism is a spectrum disorder, and a child doesn't have to show very many kinds of significant impairments to actually, in fact, have the disorder. So we should diagnose all these kids with the disorder very young and have them do it and all of that. So, yeah, the basic thing is professionals are diagnosing your kids based on their environmental bias. Physical, environmental, and emotional things could be happening in their world, right? Where their boss says, we need to give more of these autism diagnoses because that's the only way parents will pay. And what I'm hearing a lot from parents is they have to get the diagnosis, even though their child doesn't currently show the things, but they look at history, they look at other things because they need the diagnosis to pay the money. And they say, well, if you want therapy, just let us work the papers and then we get it. So the child gets the diagnosis, whether they have it or not, or they need it or not. And that's why misdiagnosis happens, because I don't even know how many of the kids who are receiving autism diagnosis have it or not. But the fact is, it doesn't matter. And the biggest issue is that you care about the autism diagnosis, because if it was given to your child in an arbitrary way just to release funding for services, then you should just automatically detach from that diagnosis, and it doesn't matter. And anytime somebody goes to write it on a paper, you just voice your disagreement. I know that it says that, but I disagree, and I want my opinion noted. And they may or may not believe you. You may or may not fight with them, but honestly, do you really think about this for yourself? Do you really want to trust people who don't listen to you about what you know your child can do because you taught them to do it? Like, if you read my book or you watch these videos and you've been using language facilitation, and then you take your child to someone else and they try to give you a diagnosis based on old information or inaccurate stuff, like what your child does for them and the thing, and they don't listen to your old information about what happened this week with your child starting to say new words or showing you more advanced nonverbal communication. If they don't listen to you, that, I suggest, is not the professional that you should be working with. Okay? Now, Layla wants to know, I would want to know if this is a great fit for my child. And I'm sorry if this is an obvious question, but Layla, this, just so you know, is not a program for children. This is a parent coaching program. And the criteria for kids to do well with language facilitation, when their parents work with me, I teach you every single minute through your day how to get from sunrise to sunset and get 2 to 3 hours of language facilitation in your child's life through you and the people who care for your child. That's what I do for parents. And when parents follow my strategies and follow their plan to make a language facilitation effort 2 to 3 hours per day to teach your child the words they need, they want to know, to share their ideas, not the words you want them to say, not the words on their IEP, not the words on their list of what words kids should be saying, their words that they want to say, because they are all communicating with you non-verbally. And if you want to know how to find out how to bring that language out into the real world with your child, from your child, to share with everyone in the world, then this is the program for you. And I'm going to show you one more time how to access it. You can access it in a bunch of different ways, okay? So you can read my book. It is audio book. You know, you can learn the entire step-by-step process. It's the basics in the book. I have an online independent study course. Let me show you here. Independent study course. There's a full week, 2 weeks. You can work with this thing. It's $500. It takes you all the way through social communication, even bilingual communication. It's on my website. And if you want to roll up and move into coaching, you can use that $500 and roll it up into coaching. If you decide, I still want Marcy, because I do a video analysis. You send me video of your kid. I look at what you're doing and I identify all the physical, environmental, and emotional blockages that are going on in your life. And I tell you, if you want to keep getting what you're getting, you do this. If you want to get something new, I'm going to give you a new plan. And I'm going to show you how to make it easy, happy, safe, and fun for your child to learn how to say all the things they are thinking. And if you want to teach your child that, then this is the program for you. So let's see. Laura says, I'm so glad I didn't agree with what the nursery and speech therapist said about my daughter. Otherwise, she would have been misdiagnosed and she would not be where she is today in terms of her speech. Laura's absolutely right. Right? Do I use the ADOS to test diagnosis? I don't test diagnosis at all. In fact, I don't believe the ADOS is a good judge. The only judge that I think is good for diagnosis of autism is children over 4 or 5 years old, and you use the DSM criteria. That's it. ADOS does not tell you anything how to help a child. All it does is give you numbers and a level. It doesn't tell you what's wrong, what's blocking that child's environment, what's blocking their physiology that cause their late talking. Because kids who have ear infections, if you give them an ADOS, they're going to show up as autistic because they do repetitive behaviors. They don't listen and follow directions. They're all late talking, right? If they've got pain or inflammation, they're going to show sensory issues. They're going to obviously be reluctant to go near anybody because they've got pain and they're working on healing their own pain body first. So I don't like the ADOS at all. I know it is the number one thing that people use to diagnose if a child has autism or late talking. But the fact of the matter is you don't need a diagnosis at all to teach your child to use the words they want to use with language facilitation. Excuse me. You don't need any standardized tests. I look at video. You just need to identify the blockages. It's all about it. Okay, I keep missing these. Hi, Callie and FBA. I keep missing these in California. I changed my time to 11 a.m. Eastern now, so it's a little bit earlier. It's going to be early in the morning. I've been mom, and I've been doing a program with the son, Eddie. Hi. So good to see you. I'm really glad. If you have questions, let me know. Is it okay if my son watches cartoons in other languages? Oh, that's an interesting question. So the thing about that, and this is my last one because I've got to get going at noon to go to my community meeting. So if your child watches cartoons in other languages, first of all, you want to limit the time that your child's watching what I call garbage TV or fun TV or stuff that's just for entertainment. And those things that your child does watch for fun, you use those as language facilitation tools. So if your child's watching videos in foreign languages all by himself, that's not helping you facilitate language with him. It is just garbage, boring time that he has on his own. And if you're also getting at least 2 to 3 hours of other really good language facilitation time, and your kid spends a half hour a day watching videos in Japanese, it's probably not a big deal. However, if your child is obsessed and always trying to get the phone to watch videos in other languages, and they're watching the same video in this language and this language, and they're super hyper focused on that, number one, you can use that to talk about as a language facilitation, how your child's finding them, what the topic is, what languages they are, the method your child is using through YouTube to identify other languages, because they are using those tools. And they're doing it non-verbally. They figured it out through looking at the algorithms to how to figure out how to do it. If they're thinking about that, you should be talking about that. So like I said, age-appropriate whole sentences. is what your child is thinking. That's what they need to be hearing. If you're doing a lot of talking about, you know, oh, you want the phone and you want a video, your kiddo's 5 steps ahead of you. So every time your child gives you anything, a behavior, a word, a squeak, a noise, a sentence, give them back 3 full sentences about that topic every single time. And then you will hear more language. And that's how it goes. All right. So let's see. Mary Nanga, hi. And raising autism. Can I answer my question about pronunciation? Oh, sorry. Pronunciation. How do you talk? How do I go about talking to his speech? My son babbles constantly, and I think he's saying words, but he has problems with pronunciation. Okay. He doesn't have problems with pronunciation. He has problems with listening. Okay. And if all of his words are mumbling, that means that it's garbage in, garbage out. And the strategy that you need raising autism, the best strategy you can use, and I have a whole entire video about it, and everybody can watch this as I leave you, is slow talking. Go to my website or go to the YouTube video, look at the little search in my channel for slow talking. There is a slow talking and there's a no prompting, but the slow talking video will help you a ton in this respect. What's happening is your child's processing is probably moving a little bit more slowly than all the speech they're trying to go, because they're trying to learn how to use these words and memorize that whole process. At the same time, maybe you're also teaching them or asking them to follow directions. And again, you can't think on everything in the same. You can't learn a foreign language, or a new spoken language is what this is, the second language, right? You can't learn a second language and learn a brand new skill like math or potty training or, you know, giving up other things at the same time. You have to do your language facilitation about easy things that are happy, safe, and fun to talk about. And that's what we do with language facilitation. All right, everybody, I've got to go for now. These lives, I'm only able to do 1 hour. Thank you for joining me. Next week, I'll be back on with a different topic. And slow talking helped my son listen more immediately. That's right, Callie FBA. Slow talking is a game changer. All right, that's what I'm going to leave you with today. Thank you for joining me again. One more time, here's all the resources. You can look in the description box to find them all too. Thanks again for joining me on this week's live Q&A. I look forward to seeing all of your questions and comments in the comments section. And if you didn't join me live, be sure to like this video anyway and comment your question, because I could probably attach another video from my YouTube channel or answer it in the comments. So this is your time to get the help you need. And if you're looking to join me and you want to talking within 3 to 6 weeks like these other moms are, wavesofcommunication.com. I'm Marcy Melzer. Nice to see you all, and I will see you all on my next video. Bye for now.